I mean, you've touched on it, but I mean, there are clearly barriers to entering and being in the legal profession, and that it's not known for being the most diverse, shall we say. What's your experience and thoughts on that, and what you think needs to be done?
I have a lot of thoughts on it. I mean, it's getting better and it's getting worse, right? So at least people now, at least the bar now over some period of time has been mindful. Now, in respect of the top end, it's actually quite good. So, for example, applying to become a silk or a judge has got much better because first, there's no tap on the shoulder anymore. There is a real corporate mindfulness, and sometimes people hear the word corporate and they bristle, but they shouldn't. You know, every year when you see the silks list of those who have made QC, you go, yeah, I haven't seen one for years, right? I thought, you know, that's the old boys network. You know, it really is, I think, more than ever, based on all of the kind of meritocratic things that we would want, you know, any kind of competition to be based on. It's based on quality. And the judiciary, again, you know, of course, they draw from the best, but, you know, amongst other people in the last few years, my ex-Chambers mate and heroine of mine, fellow member of Chambers for over a decade, Bob's dame now, Bobby Chi McGrath, she's the first Asian woman High Court judge. My money's on her being the first female Lord Chief Justice, but hold this space, she might be the second or third, I hope. So at the top end, a lot of work is being done. The difficulty is that we need to kind of think about this complex answer, and you'll forgive me, but I hope, but about what privilege is, right? And it's really difficult. It's difficult in this regard that let's think about the bar, because that's who I can speak, that's what I can speak to with more confidence and more experience and more evidence. When I first started, there might be 200 applicants for pupillage and they'd take 5. 2 of them would be funded pupillage. They'd take me, a traditional candidate, but, you know, I'm gay, it's no secret, but, you know, I ticked all of the other boxes. But they also took a chance on 3 other candidates who might not be from traditional backgrounds, might not have jumped through all of the same academic hoops, right? So there were 5 of us that were taken on. The 2 of us who got the funded pupillages from the traditional safe pair of hands backgrounds, I'm now, as you know, chiefly on television. I do a bit of work, but, you know, I write books and that sort of thing. My co-pupil is a very close friend, works at Deutsche Bank. The other 3 are senior figures in the law. They went on to have brilliant careers, I think, in a variety of different ways. When I first started at the bar, the grandees, the greats, people that could stop you dead and give you goosebumps just by virtue of a word or a sentence. Orlando Pownall, Sir Desmond Silver, the chief war crimes prosecutor, David Waters, who prosecuted Jeffrey Archer, you name it. I mean, practically all the silks in my chambers. Many instances, not only no university degree, not only no first class university degree, forgive me, no A-level, only A-levels. In other words, you could become a barrister simply by doing your A-levels and going to bar school. And so you had a greater range of diversity in that regard. Also no debt or less debt. But at the same time, access to pupillage, you had to pay however many guineas it was, or you might be able to get in, but you had to be able to fund yourself. And so you see, in response to that, correctly, the bar said, well, you're going to have to pay for your pupils. That's the right thing to do, especially if they're in that much debt. One of the consequences of that is that's radically reduced the number of pupillages available, right? And so consequently, what's happened is that it seems to me anyway, that chambers are consequently more likely to require people to jump through all of the academic hoops. And so you get a less broad range of people with, again, let's use that word, a range of, and the correct use of this term, lived experiences. And that's enormously important because the law should be, of course, it's difficult and you have to study it, but actually it's about problem solving on behalf of people. And it's about meeting people in crisis and having the language to communicate, to share, to enable people to understand, be that a jury or clients in crisis. My mentoree, I'm so proud of, and I know she won't mind me speaking about her. Her parents are from India, and I saw her when she was 18. She won a schools competition, like a mock trial competition. I went and spoke to her school and said, look, see if you can get her to come to London to do mini pupillage. I can't find her anywhere to live. You'll have to sort all that stuff out. And she did, and she stayed in touch. She put herself through university, working 3 jobs, got a first. Now, what I was able to do with her, what I was able to do on her behalf was connect her to the network which really matters. And the network that really matters are all the work experiences, all of the pupillages, all the things she was going to need to build up her CV to get through the first round of pupillage. The next thing was to give her the sense that she deserved and felt entitled enough to be in the room, that sense of confidence. And that's often the difference between the successful candidates and those who are less successful. What happens with people who are not from, haven't debated or don't feel that sense of confidence is that they might be the most brilliant people in the world, but you'll ask them to do an advocacy exercise and they'll come in, and might be an opening of a case, and they'll say, oh, the vehicle went to the public house. I mean, do you mean the car in the pub? That's really important. That often, in other words, what happens is that people from less privilege, and by privilege, I mean class privilege, very important. There are a range of different intersections, and they interfere and affect and interplay with each other in a range of different ways. But what I've experienced myself is that the critical thing is about the social environment you come from and that sense of entitlement you have. And what that informs more than anything else, I think, is the way in which, as I say, you feel like it's okay for you to be in the room. And so what you don't do is play the part of a barrister that you've imagined in your head. So I need to sound posh. I need to speak like a barrister, to have the confidence to be yourself. It's a really long-winded answer with a kind of meandering, I think, unfocused set of thoughts in there. But I really do think it matters, and we need to be more mindful of reflecting on it. Yes, it's right to say diversity has been more thought about, but in terms of really thinking in a meaningful sense about how we can reach out into, well, find people with broad range of talents that don't come from traditional backgrounds, I think the bar, and I think law in general, is less good at now, at its cost, than it used to be in the past, as are major law firms, because it's all about hoop jumping. And because given the because there are fewer places, it inevitably rewards people who are already prepared. And who are the people who are prepared? Well, you might have been at the tutorial system in Oxford where you've been forced to defend your position. It might be because you've come from a private school where, you know, there's a sense of confidence and entitlement, etc. But that's as much a shared lived experience as my mentoree, I've had several, my mentoree who is a woman of colour, as it is of a young boy, for example, this boy might be in his early 20s, who's from a mainly white community in Tyneside, for example. They share that. Mm-hmm. And I think that you look around the bar now at the young applicants, they're all academically brilliant, to be sure. I mean, I spoke to a young applicant yesterday. I mean, her academic credentials were extraordinary. But I asked her why she wanted to be a barrister, and it was fine. Wasn't nearly as persuasive as my mentoree, nearly as compelling.
Passion.
And sorry?
No passion there. No passion to make.
It's a question of passion. It's a question of passion. It's a question of being that we are disproportionately focused, as I say, on, or we are not as agile, I think, as a profession at really thinking about how we can assess skill sets to get the best people, you know. And I think that really matters. So in my TV life, for example, what's really interesting is I've got these amazing producers that have to produce legal cases. We don't care whether you've got an A level or not. We often allow applicants to submit their applications on video. They come in, and I want common sense, right? And so when they've got to put a case together, I need them to trust their due diligence, so they've checked the case is real. Well, how do you check a case is real? I could ask 10 people. I ask, well, this one person, and well, how do you check a case is real? I say, somebody would ask that of a person interview. Oh, well, what you do is you ask grandma, because that's a lived experience coming from that community, right? And somebody might come in crisis, and they've got a suitcase full of information about a housing issue. Well, the person that I've had the privilege and gift of working with will have either had that personal experience, or we'll go, you sit down there and have a cup of tea, and I'm going to triage this information into what's important. And that judgment can't be taught, you see. It's common sense. Anyway, it's a really long-winded answer, forgive me, because you've asked it at an interesting time of the day when I've been reflecting on this. That, as I say, much as it's important to have the brightest and the best, and the bar must represent that real kind of, that, I suppose, a relationship between the academic life and being an advocate, we also need to be mindful that we're missing out on this ocean of talent because of the way in which we disproportionately focus on those things rather than things we used to do, which was about, can you be a great advocate? Do you have common sense? How do we really assess whether you've got good judgment or not? You know, some of the dimmest, certainly the most intellectually stupid people I've met are the most academic.
Yeah.